Okay people, so today we're going to be doing numbers in Delphi. So it's not actually doing numbers itself, it's actually basically doing just like we did the strings, the copy, everything like that. We're going to actually do functions of numbers and how to use numbers in Delphi and manipulate them. Okay, so first off, I'm gonna just show you a bunch of functions that you can just take a note of, and then I will actually take those functions and then do these edit boxes with them using the button. Okay, so first off we're gonna be talking about mod. Okay, so what does mod do? Okay, if you can still remember, what mod does is it divides two numbers and returns the remainder. Oh, sorry, 1 second. Remainder. Okay. Example is if you say 4 divided by 2, it will give the remainder of 0. If you say 5 divided by 2, so then it will give the remainder of 1, because it's 2, 4, and then what is 5 minus 4? 1. Okay, so that's what mod does, just returns the remainder. Next up, we've got div. So div is used to divide integer numbers. Okay, and it will also then just throw away the decimal. Okay. One thing to note is modern div only works with integers. Okay. Here we go. Okay. So mod and div only works with integers, meaning both sides of the divide need to be integers, and mod, you have to have an integer modded by 2 or 4 another integer. Okay. Then we've got the function round. Okay, so round, what does round do? It just, rounds off a number. So you can actually specify to how many decimals, if you want decimals or not. Next up we've got random. So we know what random does. Random, a number between a certain range. Okay. Then we've got a trunc. What trunc does is trunc basically cuts away, or let's say throws away the decimal. So if you've got a number, let's say 2,485, whatever, like this, then after you trunc this, you will get just a 2. So even if it was 2,99999, you will trunc it and it will give you a 2. So if you change this to 2,9, it will still just give you a 2, because it basically cuts away the decimal. Okay, the next one we have is seal. So what does seal do? Seal basically rounds the number up. So if you think about looking up at the roof, the ceiling is above your head, so it rounds up. And then you get another function called floor. So just again, if you look down, the floor is underneath you, so that means it will round a number down. Okay, then next up we've got Sqrt, which actually stands for square root, and that just gives you square root of a number. Okay, then we get Sqr, just Sqr. So Sqr stands for square, so that will give you the square of a number. Okay, then next up we've got the power function. So power, what power does, it's simple. If you say 2 to the power of 3 or 4 to the power of 3, 2 to the power of 2, that's exactly how you're going to use this function. So just used for power. Okay, next up is, or the last one actually, is frac. Okay, frac is actually used to only extract the decimal. Okay, everyone's still with me? Okay, everyone's still good? Okay, so that is all the functions, and now we're going to implement them. Okay, so now we will see we've got two enters. So the first one is enter number 1, which is a whole number or an integer. Next one is number 2, which is going to be a real or a decimal number. Okay, so first up we're going to extract these two numbers. So I know I'm going to have a, let's just call it, okay, well, first going to say var. So then we're going to have a num1, which will be of integer data type. Then I'm going to have a num2, which will be a double. Okay, so then we're going to quickly extract those two numbers. So we'll just say num1 is equal to our edt num1.text, and then we must just remember, because it's a string and we want to put it inside of an integer, we must just convert it. Okay, so string to int, and it will be converted. Okay, same with num2, but instead of having an integer string to int, we will have a string to float, and then just our edt number 2. Okay, I don't think, let's just see what it's called. I think the name edt num2. Okay, yeah, it should work. edt num2. Okay, dot text. Okay, so now we extracted both numbers. Okay, we're gonna start from the left hand side going down, and then the next the right hand side going down. Okay, so the first one is number 1 a multiple of 2. Okay, so we're gonna use the mod function to determine if number 1 is a multiple of 2. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna just have an if statement, and we are gonna say if our num1 mod by 2 equals 0, begin, and inside our edt mod dot text we'll just display something like a yes. Okay, otherwise else we'll just begin and say edt or mod dot text is equal to, and then we'll display the message no. Okay, so what this basically just means is we're gonna have a number, let's say in this case it is 4, so we're gonna mod it, and remember I said mod divides the numbers and returns the remainder. So if number mod 2, so if we use 4 or 4 as our example, then it's basically gonna say 4 divided by 2, and it's gonna give us a remainder. Okay, so in this case it's gonna give us the remainder 0. So is 0 equal to 0? Yes it is, so then it will display the yes. In another case, if we had number 1 as 5, yeah, and it modded by 2, and so then obviously here our remainder is 1, so is our remainder equal to 0? So 1 is not equal to 0, so this will not be executed, but otherwise else this will be executed, so our no will actually be shown. Okay, straightforward, everyone good? Okay, great. Okay, so that was the mod one. So now the next one, divide number 1 with 3. So then it will be our number 1, again integers. So we'll have we can just say edt div dot text is equal. Okay, remember we're gonna have an integer value, so it's divide two integers, it's gonna give us an integer, so it's gonna need to be int to string. And then what do we want to do? We want to take number 1 div, and you will see it goes blue, divide by 3, and it will then just show us the answer. Okay, next one, round number 2 off to 2 decimals. Okay, so we'll have our edt round dot text is equal to, okay, so in this case it's gonna be a double that's gonna need to be displayed, so I'm gonna already just have a float to string. Okay, so now inside our conversion, okay, what do we want to actually do? Okay, we want to round number 2 off to 2 decimals. So what we'll do is we'll first just call round. Okay, what do we want to round? We want to round number 2, but first we want to divide it by 100, and then after the bracket we want to divide it by 100. Okay, why? How does this work again? If we have, let's say, the number 200 comma 1 3 whatever, so what this is going to do, remember brackets is always going to be first, so it's going to first do this one, then it will divide, and then it will, no sorry, it will round and then it will divide. Okay, so brackets first this one, then it's going to do the function, then it will just divide. Okay, so the first step is it's going to multiply the, this number by 100, so basically it's going to move the comma 2 places to the right, so then 200 comma 1 space 2 space, it will put the comma inside of this number at that position now, then it will round down, okay, or up, so then it's going to look at now 20,013,2452. It's going to see, okay, is this greater than 5? No, it's not, so this number, the tree will stay the same, so it's just going to remove basically the decimals or round it off. And what then it does, it's already now rounded, so now it's just going to look at the divide by 100. We're going to take the comma and then move it 2 places to the left, so now it's going to be 1 2, so then it's 213. Okay, so you see how that big number or a lot of decimals then just got rounded down. So that's basically how the round works. Okay, so that was then the round. Okay, next up will be recording. Okay, is the random. Okay, so random whole number between 44 and 144. Okay, so we're just gonna say our edt random dot text. Okay, because again this is gonna be an integer, I'm just gonna say int to string. Okay, okay, so now the function I'm gonna use is random. Okay, before that we would just like to actually write here just randomize. Okay, just to make it a bit more random, and then we're gonna have the function random called. Okay, so then inside of those brackets what we want to do is we want to write down the highest, which will be 144, minus our lowest, which is just 44, and then plus 1. Okay, outside the brackets what must I write?
Plus the lowest, which is 44.
Plus 44, awesome. Okay, and that will then give us a random between those two ranges, 44, 100 and 44. Okay, that was our random. So then the next one will be our throw away the decimal of number 2. Okay, so if our number is something like, again, 213, we want to throw away the decimal and just keep 200. Okay, so what we're gonna do, let's just again call our edt trunk.text is equal. Okay, then we're gonna say into string. Okay, so what we're gonna use now is that function we called trunk. Okay, we're gonna call it, and then you will see it's gonna need something between the brackets. Between the brackets is the variable that you basically want to chop the decimal off. Okay, so in this case it's gonna be on num2. Let me just check if it's gonna accept the integer. Okay, yes. So then basically again, like I said, if where is trunk? Yeah, if you've got a 2,9567, it will literally ignore the whole decimal. It's not gonna round it, it's just gonna chop it off. Okay, so then you are left just with the 2. Even if it was 2,9999999, it's just gonna chop it off. It's still gonna be 2. Okay, and that is the trunk function. Next up, we've got round number 2 up. Okay, so I'm just gonna use edt seal for this one. Text is equal to, okay, so it's gonna round it up. So let's just use a into string. Okay, the function we are gonna call is, like I said, if you want to round up, you look at the roof, you see the ceiling, so then you know you must use the seal. Okay, let me just take this to float. Okay, well, let's just try it. What does it say? Okay, so you will see now it says undeclared identifier seal. So what you can do now is you scroll up to the top where it says uses, you go to the last one, you add a comma, and then you just write in math. Okay, so our seal, floor, and I think power will all need this math one, and that's why it doesn't pick it up. Okay, so we've got our seal. You will see, there we go, it says it needs a constant, and you can see here at the end it says it's gonna return an integer, so we know we can just change this float to string back to into string, although both should actually work. Okay, but because it is gonna give us an integer, let's try to display it into string, have the data types are correct. Okay, so like I said, we look up to the roof, we see the ceiling, so we're gonna write seal, and then it requires in the brackets what do we want to round up. Okay, what we want to round up is number 2, just like that. Okay, now with the round down, round number 2 down, so then we're gonna call edt floor.text is equal to, again just into string, and the function we're gonna be using is, if you look down you see the floor, so that will round it down. You'll see once I hold down control, press space, it also again gives the function called floor. It's gonna need a variable and give us an integer back. So inside the brackets we just type in the variable we want to round down, which is number 2. Okay, great. So that was then rounding down. Then we've got 4 left. Show the square root of number 1. Okay. So what we want to do is we want to have our edt square root dot text will be equal to, okay, so everyone knows what the square root is, hopefully. Okay, so if we've got a number like 16, the square root of 16 will be 4. Yes, correct. Okay, And if we say the square of a number, so if you say the square of 4 will be 16. So basically it just again takes 4 multiplied by itself. Okay, but we are still at square root, so let's just say offload to string. Okay, then we're gonna call the square root function Sqrt. So it just stands for square root. Okay, and then what do we want the square root of? What did the question say? It says show the square root of number 1. Okay, so then we must just type in number 1. So that will show us the square root of number 1. Next up we've got take number 1 to the power of 2. Okay, I'm gonna jump down to the bottom here to square number 1 while we're on the square and square root and stuff. So let's just call our edt square dot text is equal, again just float to string. Okay, so we're gonna now square root has the t at the end and square just has sqr, so we're gonna call our function sqr. You'll see again there it is, function square. It's gonna require a real and give us an extended. So inside here we're just gonna type, so what do we want the square of, or what do we want to square rather, and that will be number 1. Alright, okay, so that was square. Okay, so now the next one is take number 1 to the power of 2. Okay, everyone knows what power is. If I say what is 2 to the power of 2, we're just gonna multiply 2 times 2. If I say 2 to the power of 3, it's gonna be 2 times 2 times 2. Okay, simple math. Okay, so then we're gonna go to edt power.text. I'm just gonna call my edit boxes. Gonna call float to string. Okay, so now I'm gonna use the power function, and I'm gonna call it just by typing in power. You will see here it requires 2 variables. It has a variable, comma, another variable. Okay, so the first variable we're gonna enter is the base number. Okay, so what does it say? Take number 1 to the power of 2. So the base number will then be number 1, and then our exponent will then be the second parameter. Okay, first one base, next one exponent, and it says take it to the power of 2, so exponent will then be 2. Okay, very basic. Everyone still good? Okay, so that was then taking one number to the power of another. So this power of 2 can be anything. Can be to the power of 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, whatever you want to. Okay, then the last one is only show the decimal of number 2. Okay, so this is basically kind of the opposite of trunc, which actually just showed us the number and throw away the decimal. Now we want to throw away the number and only show the decimal. Okay, so now we're going to use the function called frac. Also know, if it makes sense, just call it fraction. So it's going to show you the fraction. Okay, so I'm just going to call my edit box. And then float to string. Okay, so again I said let's call the function frac. Control space, you will see just requires one variable. Easy. Okay, so what number do we want to put in there if we want to display the decimal, and it's asking for number 2's decimal. So I can just type in number 2. Okay, so now let's see if there's any errors or if it works. So let's enter a whole number. So let's say 16. Let's enter a real number. So let's give it 20,147963, and let's see if there's any errors. If I click calculate, it will say is number 1 a multiple of 2. So that was the mod one. Then so 16 divided by 2 will give us a remainder of 0, so obviously 2 can go into 16. Then we've got divide number 1 with 3. So 16, if you go and you say 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, you will see it goes in 5 times. And then yes, there is a remainder of 1, but because we used div, it will just give us the the number of times, and it will just throw away the remainder. Okay, next it is round. Yes. Okay, then we've got round number 2 off to 2 decimals. So we look at number 2. It's gonna look at 20,14. So look at the next number is 7. 7 is greater or equal than 5, so 4 will then become 5, and then it's gonna just throw the rest away. That's what I did. Okay, random whole number between 44 and 144. It gave us a random whole number. Then throw away the decimal of number 2. We will see we only have 20, so it threw away the decimal. We've got round number 2 up, so it's 20. Although it is 20,1, rounding up means we're gonna just go to the next 1th, and that will be 21. Then we've got round number 2 down, so it's 20,14, so it's just gonna round down to 20. Then we've got to show the square root of number 1, so that is 16. The square root of 16 will be 4, so because 4 times 4 equals 16. Then we've got number 1 to the power of 2, so 16 to the power of 2 will be 256. Next up we've got square number 1, which will also be 256. Yeah, 16 times 16 obviously, and that will be the same as, well, to the power of 2, 16 times 16. And then only show the decimal of number 2. Okay, so here we can see it threw away the first part and it just kept the decimal part. Obviously that 0.0000001 is not shown there at the top for some reason. Okay, but that is numbers, and what you're going to need to know about numbers and how to basically manipulate them.